All right, so now that we've seen the basics of setting up a Node.js project with TypeScript, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to see how to write a slightly more complex TypeScript script and then build and run it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just create a new file inside our source directory, and you can even delete this script.ts file if you want. Okay, and we'll create a new file and we'll call this something like write to file.ts. All right, so what we're going to do here is, first of all, we're going to want it to use TypeScript so that we can see how all of the types look in a basic Node.js program. And all that it's going to do is it's just going to write some simple content to a file. So what that means is we're going to be using the fs package. And so first of all, what we're going to want to do is say import fs from fs. Okay, so that will import the file system package for us. And the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to just define a simple piece of text that we want to write to a file. So what we'll do here is we'll say something like, we'll just call it text. And actually we'll do the same thing that we had in our previous file. So we'll say let text string, and we'll say something like hello from TypeScript again. And now that we have that, what we're going to do is we're just going to use the fs package to write this simple string to a file. So what that's going to look like is we're going to say fs.write file. And right away, what you can see is if you put the little parentheses after it, you're going to see all of the different types show up after each of the arguments, right? So you can see that the fs package actually has its own custom types that apply for different situations, right? So you can see that this file argument here, which is the first argument, has the type of path or file descriptor. Now, all right, now this is just a custom type that the fs package has that represents all file path formats. So it's a little bit more specific than strings. But anyway, if we want to specify a file path to write to here, what we're going to do is we're going to say something like file.txt, okay? And then we're also going to need to specify some other things, of course. We're going to need to specify the text that we want to write to the file. And then we're going to specify the callback function. All right, now if we just add a function here, which we'll just say function like so, this is actually going to take an error as an argument, as most Node.js callbacks do. And if you hover over that error, you can see that that actually has its own custom type as well, right? That's a Node.js error no exception is what it's called, or you can see that it's also perfectly possible that this error argument is null, and that happens, of course, if there's no error. So anyway, inside this callback function now, what we're going to do is we're just going to say console.log, and we're just going to print out a message saying done. And that's pretty much all we need to do. So what we're going to do next is we're going to compile this write to file TypeScript file, and we're going to run it and see if it works. So what that's going to look like, and by the way, let's also just take care of this error here. So what we'll do is we'll say if there's an error, then what we'll do is we'll just say return console.log, there was an error. Okay. So let's compile this thing now. What we're going to do is we're just going to run tsc, and that should automatically compile our write to file.ts file into write to file.js. And as a matter of fact, you're going to want to remove this script.js file from that build folder since we no longer have it there. And now let's just try and run this file by saying node build/write to file.js. And sure enough, we see that it says done. And inside our project, we see this file.txt thing appear. And inside of it, we see that it says hello from TypeScript. Okay, so that's a very simple script that we can write using TypeScript. And there's a few things that I want to point out. The first thing is if we wanted to write this callback function separately from where we have it here, TypeScript might have a little bit more trouble inferring what the type is supposed to be, right? We see that right away it tells us that it's expecting this error type to be of type any. And as we saw before, that had the type of Node.js.error no exception. So if we add that now, we can see that that will get rid of that little TypeScript warning that we were seeing. And of course, we're going to need to add a function name. So we'll say something like done writing file. And if we want to be extra thorough here, we can just add the return type void here. Okay, because even when we say return console.log, really the reason that we're saying return here is just to stop the rest of the function from executing. But the return type of console.log is undefined, so that fits in with void. So anyway, now that we've done that, we can pass done writing to file, or done writing file, as an argument to our write file function. And oops, it looks like we have a little red underline there, and that's because we forgot to add the union type saying that our error could be null. So if we add that, and we'll see that that will make the little red underline here go away, because that's now the exact type that TypeScript was expecting. All right, so that's the first thing that I wanted to discuss here. The other thing that I wanted to discuss was if we want to make it easier to run these scripts, right? It's kind of a pain to have to remember to compile our code and then run the specific file each and every time. So the good news here is that because this is an NPM project, right? It's an NPM package that we're developing here, we can actually go into package.json and we can add a script that will take care of that for us. So what we're going to do here is we're going to remove this default test script that they gave us. And what we'll do is we'll add our own dev script. And what this will do is it will automatically compile our project for us by running the tsc command. So we can just add that right there. And then it will run the compiled write to file by saying node, and then we'll say build/write to file. There we go, .js. So if we save that now, what we should be able to do is instead of having to run two commands ourselves, we can now just say npm run dev, and that tells npm, by the way, to run this dev script that we've specified. And if we hit enter, we'll see that sure enough, it compiles that file for us, and then it runs our script automatically, and that's where we see done, and we'll see that file here again. So anyway, that's how to write a simple TypeScript script in Node.js. Obviously, there are a lot of other details that you can get into if you start using different libraries. So really my recommendation is just to play around with the different built-in packages and even installing other libraries and just see the type structure that they use, right? See the different types that they use, such as this exception thing here, which is very common in Node.js projects. And, you know, just basically play around with it until you get a good feel for it. So anyway, that's how to create a simple script in TypeScript. And we've also seen how to make a shortcut here in our package.json. So the next thing that we're going to see is how to actually create a simple server using TypeScript.